time we touched on the advanced level history, international affairs. We touched on the causes of the French Revolution in detail. So we are moving on to the next topic, which is the cause of the French Revolution. But before we get into the actual cause, the governments which were involved in the cause, we have to touch on this topic which bridges between that cause and the causes. There is the calling of the East General Meeting. I think in the last lessons I explained about how Louis XVI was pressurized to call it. Yes. Amongst the causes, there were the poor harvest. Yes. We explained the fact about how it led to the third estate members, to the peasants, to engage into the rural to urban drift. They came from the rurals to the urbans to ask, to demand for change directly to the king. So this Eastern General Meeting was last held about 175 years back. I will explain that. It was in 1615. So for it to be called in 1789, it was something like 175. So which means the first 10 members never cared. That's the analysis. They never cared. Pakati pesa pa vanomboita hanya yekushedza the meeting so that they can deliberate issues which can affect the country's economy or the country's social and socio-political status. So what really happened in that May of 1789, they were the May riots. Because these people were like a ticking time bomb when they were just settled in Paris, the Paris mobs. Ma peasants angari patight akabva abva kumusha abva anozara mutauni. So they were ticking time bomb. At any time they were bound to explode. And they indeed exploded in March 1789. That's why we are to start with the May riots. So it was the economic crisis. These people were already in a tight situation. But it was worsened by the poor harvest of 1788 and 1799. And this led to the May riots, not only in Paris, but around some parts of France, around some provinces. So upon Apo Kufawan, there was little bloodshed in the May riots of 1788, but the situation was sort of out of control to an extent that Louis XVI, being himself he sent troops to try and quell the troubles. The troops were led by they sent the soldiers led by General de Vaux to bring order to the provinces. And it was to no avail. General de Vaux led that the public opinion was demanding the abolition of the laissez cachet and also the calling of this General Meeting. So the people were the ones who pressurized so that this General Meeting was supposed to be called and to deliberate the issues, to solve the financial problems and also other problems. Masoja akatoenda kuhamba, but they failed, kutonhodza the people wanga vakadikanduru vaitopopota singaiti. They were so angry, they were so livid, they demanded change. So Louis XVI on 5 May 1789 had to call the meeting of the Eastern General Meeting. On the meeting of the Eastern General Meetings, the affected parties or the affected estates were asked to write what we call cahiers. Cahiers is the list of grievances. In simple shona, vakanzi vanyore list rezvichemo zvavari kunakisana nazvo. And who was on the forefront? It was the obvious third estate members, right? So I can still go back and say what were the reasons for calling the Eastern General Meeting. So we can also go back to the causes. Number one, the financial bankruptcy and how it was exacerbated or how it was worsened by the effects of the poor harvest, right? It needed a desperate or a comprehensive attention to that. So the king, though he was incompetent and inconsiderate, came to a point that he had to call the meeting. And again, pressure on Louis XVI mounted. You get the sense? Yes, there was pressure on Louis XVI because there were some of the new ideas from the philosophers which compelled him to what? To call these general meetings. Philosophers such as Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Montesquieu, and some encyclopedists, they were attacking Louis XVI fervently, right? They criticized the government. They opened the minds of the people, and it put Louis XVI in a certain corner. And again, the American War of Independence, I said that when they went to America, they came back pregnant and highly conscientized with revolutionary ideas. Those were the same people who compelled the people to revolt, like they got into the minds of the people and compelled them to revolt. So, like from time immemorial, people were disgruntled about the nature of the government. Like they demanded reforms in the nature of the government, and they wanted everything to change, socially, politically, and economically. And they also wanted the legal system to be addressed. Yes, the legal system was in shambles. There wasn't equality in the law, right? So the French people wanted equality before the law. Like the majority of the French people, especially the peasants and also the petty bourgeoisie, they wanted social redress on the privileges enjoyed by the nobility and the clergy, who were widely perceived as the buttress of royal power. So they also wanted like sort of an equality, right? But when this meeting was called up, it didn't normalize things. It didn't solve the situation, because there were two things which stood out, which Louis XVI failed to address. So before we talk of those two things, number one, the issue of the seating arrangement, right in the when they held that meeting, the Easter General Meeting, vanga vakagariswa vakati ma-first state members pavo, ma-second state members pavo, ma-third state members pavo, of which the revolutionary war cry was equality, freedom, and fraternity, and which are also the colors of the French flag, because the French flag is three colors, like blue, red, and white. Blue, red, and white, that's the France flag, right? The colors of the France flag. They represent equality, freedom, and fraternity, which was part of the revolutionary war cry. They wanted equality, they wanted freedom, they wanted fraternity. Fraternity is unity or brotherhood. You get the sense? So they even preached about it right before in the war, where they were having that meeting. So now the problem is Nyaya sitting arrangement. Louis XVI akaita kuti vanhu vagare kwavo vega, ma-first state kwavo vega, ma-third state kwavo vega, zvakabva zvatoratidza kuti he does not want change. He was also pressurized by the first state members. So why didn't it address the problems? Why? Issue number one, the voting procedures. They wanted to come up with an electoral system, but now the voting procedures became a bone of contention. The third estate members were so many. They constituted about 97% of the country's population. They had a numerical advantage. So they insisted on voting by head. So the privileged groups, mainly the first estate and the second estate, they insisted on voting by estate. So in France, let me try to go back, the social structure of France. There were three groups: first estate, second estate, and third estate. So the first and second estate were privileged groups. The third estate were the underprivileged groups. But there were so many. They constituted the largest percentage of the population. So they knew that if we say we are going to vote by head, one man, one vote, they will win. But these privileged groups insisted on voting by what? By estate, because there were two estates which had an advantage. So if they would get into an election, it would be 2 versus what? 1. They would win. And that was the problem. So in other words, Louis XVI, he failed to handle the meeting well. He insisted on all the procedures. He insisted on the policy of separatism, whereby he wanted the three estates to deliberate separately. And it was obviously supported by the first and second estate members. So the third estate members didn't want that. They wanted the people to be what? To be united. So the issue of the voting procedures and the fact that Louis XVI was operating under a tradition which was difficult to break. Because remember I said the system itself caused the revolution, how it was set up. So Louis XVI was ruling under a system which was there from time immemorial. So it was so hard for him to make some drastic or some radical changes, you know. So that was the what? The issue, you know. So the third estate members, they wanted equality, they demanded for religious freedom, they demanded abolition of self-judicial post, they wanted ready access to the court for everyone, like simplification of court procedure. Yes, it was so bureaucratic and hard for one to be tried in court, especially I think estate members. So like they wanted equality, they wanted the Latter Day Kachet to be what? To be abolished, right? So Louis XVI eventually failed to solve these issues. He failed to address this issue. So the king insisted on the policy of separation. Akangoramba achitaura kuti aiwa vanochimira makadai kuzosvika papoint yekuti ma-third state members akati ndezvako izvi, we are sick and tired of you. So as we have noted above, the king kept on insisting on the policy of separatism, while the third state members were in the favor of the policy of a combined group. The 30 state members wanted to unite, like everyone to unite, so Awangwani class, like they didn't want to operate with others. So on 10 June 1789, the third estate members passed a motion that it would begin verifying deputies' credentials. Even if the other estates did not accept their invitation to join in, some priests began to join the third estate members. So the third estate members ended up saying, we are so many. Why should we be controlled by lesser people like this? So they insisted on starting their own things, right? That's when they started to call themselves the National Assembly. That was on 17 June 1789, right? So they claimed now that they had the right to do so since they represented the majority of the Frenchmen. So they were now dealing with the strength in numbers. And this was the first time in French history that the king's orders were defied and challenged. Louis XVI was so shocked. But this was the first time. So my third state members akasvika papoint yekuzoti yo handi muri kuramba kutibatana isusu taakuita uzvo National Assembly, which is the name of the next topic that we are supposed to start, the National Assembly government. And how do we know about it? The National Assembly is well known for the reforms, for the revolutionary reforms that it came about with. Right. So that's the understanding. Right. Let me stop from here so that we can continue tomorrow as we'll be getting into the National Assembly. So there's the royal session that was held, the National Assembly. I think National Assembly, I need 2 lessons so that I can fully explain in detail and in a way which you can fully understand. So we'll start with the royal session, then with the reforms that they deal with, the changes that they deal with, the structure, they changed the structure of France, and they even came up with the constitution. So the course of the revolution is from 1789 to 1799, up to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. There were 4 governments. The National Assembly, which is well known for for the revolutionary changes. We have the Legislative Assembly, which is well known for the 1792 Revolutionary War. We also have the Convention, which is well known for because of the Reign of Terror. Then the Directorate is well known for the rise of Napoleon. Because after the French Revolution, a new leader came. His name was Napoleon. We also touch into that. So tomorrow we are getting to the course of the revolution. Because change is not a one-day thing. Change is also a process. Yes. So it took maybe more than 10 years for France to have that change. Yes. Thank you.